Good morning. Time has come for morning mindfulness, study, meditation, loving, and sharing. This morning I'm going to read from Old Path, White Clouds, Thich Nhat Han's retelling of the Buddha's story based on traditional texts and commentaries. Thich Nhat Han is well studied. He knows his stuff. But he's also an experienced meditator. He's mindful of his audience. He has been living in the West for a long time. Now he's back in Vietnam, but he understands us. And he's able to convey the deep things in a way that Western people can grasp and digest. So I love all his writing, but particularly this book, his telling of the Buddha's story. It helps us get at the guts of the Dharma. First, I'll take refuge, full spectrum refuge, covering all of the two truths, the two dimensions, two layers of reality. I take refuge in Buddha, conventional Buddha, historical Buddha. I'm thankful that Shakyamuni Buddha began to roll the Dharma wheel in this world system. But I also take refuge in ultimate, universal, everything everywhere Buddha. Sometimes called Mahavairochana Buddha. So, looks like I have a grumpy friend. Okay, full refuge, full spectrum refuge. Then Dharma, I have a historical refuge, the teaching shared by the Buddha, then also the universal Buddha, or the universal Dharma, which is everything everywhere Dharma. We can learn from anything that happens. Also take refuge in full spectrum sangha, which is the community centered around the historical Buddha and the historical Buddha's teaching. But also there's the universal sangha, which is all sentient beings, all things everywhere. Take refuge in this larger harmonious community. So I'll do that. And I'll ignore the haters. It's bound to happen on this huge internet. So many people. No one is always praised. No one is always blamed. There is a state of mind that's imperturbable. Not everybody will understand what I'm doing. No worries. I don't expect anything from anybody. I'm not afraid of criticism. Take refuge in Buddha, the one who shows the way. And I take refuge in the Dharma, which is the way that has been shown. And I take refuge in the Sangha, which is the harmonious, loving, and wise community around this teaching of this way shower. And friend Leo, what I'm doing is nothing new. This has been a practice encouraged by the Buddha from the beginning. We're supposed to, or some of us go forth from the money-making life and we rely on the generosity of others. There is no scam here. I live a simple life. This chapter is called Neither Full Nor Empty. Chapter 65 of Old Path White Clouds. It's starting to rain. After the Dharma talk, Venerable Svasti, which is the main character of this book, noticed, and he's the kid that gave the Buddha a clump of kusha grass upon which the Buddha sat. Svasti noticed how pensive many of the monks looked. He also felt that he had not grasped what the Buddha taught. He resolved to listen carefully to the elder disciples during their Dharma discussions. At the next Dharma talk, Venerable Ananda was asked by the monks to ask questions to the Buddha in front of the entire assembly. His first question was, "Lord, what is meant by the world and the Dharmas?" The Buddha said, "Ananda, the world, loka, is the collective whole of all things, subject to change and dissolution. All dharmas are contained in the 18 realms, the 6 sense organs, the 6 sense objects, the 6 sense consciousnesses, which is the contact between the minds, the perceiving minds, and those objects which they perceive. These are called the ayatanas in Sanskrit. We have eye, ear, nose, tongue, skin or tactile sensation, and mind or intellect. And an intellect has thoughts, eyes has sight, ear has sound, nose has smell, tongue has taste. Nose and tongue are similar. I guess they're called olfactory. They both perceive chemicals, but the contact between these perceiving organs and their objects, from there arises the consciousness. So those are the 18 ayatanas in which all dharmas exist, according to this saying right here. These 6 sense organs, as you know, are what I just described, the perceiving minds and their objects. There are no dharmas apart from the 18 ayatanas. All 18 realms are subject to birth and death, to change and dissolution. That is why I have said that the world is the collective whole of all things which possess the nature of change and dissolution. Ananda then asked, "Lord, you have often said that all dharmas are empty. What is meant by that?" The Buddha said, "Well, thank you, Courtney." You just noticed that. Ananda said, the Buddha said, "Ananda, I have said that all dharmas are empty because all dharmas are without a separate self. None of the 6 sense organs, 6 sense objects, or 6 sense consciousnesses possess a separate individual self. This self is the notion that the thing stands alone as a real entity. There's a word, reification. The mind has this tendency to make real what it perceives. This is exactly what I see it as, the sight is the sight, the self is the self, and so on. This is reification. Ananda said, "Lord, you have said that the 3 gates of liberation are emptiness, signlessness, and aimlessness. You have said that all dharmas are empty. Is it because all dharmas are subject to change and dissolution that they are also empty? Ananda, I have spoken often about emptiness and the contemplation on emptiness. The contemplation on emptiness is a wondrous meditation which can help people transcend suffering, birth, and death. Today I will speak more on this contemplation. Ananda, we are all sitting together in the Dharma hall. There are no markets, buffaloes, or villages inside the Dharma hall. There are only bhikkhus sitting and listening to the Dharma. We can say that the hall is empty of all that is not here, and that it contains what is actually here. The Dharma hall is empty of markets, buffaloes, and villages, but contains bhikkhus. Do you agree that this is correct? So this is the first kind of emptiness. In the Lankavatara Sutra, so Mahayana Sutra, this kind of emptiness is said to be the lowest kind of emptiness. And it's a kind of emptiness that's dependent on dualistic discrimination. So it's to be avoided. It's a kind of emptiness that's made real. So emptiness of the reifying mind. Yes, Lord, we agree that that is correct. This hall is empty of buffaloes. After the Dharma talk, we will all leave the Dharma hall and there will no longer be any bhikkhus here. At that moment, the Dharma hall will be empty of markets, buffaloes, villages, and bhikkhus. Do you agree that this is so? Yes, Lord. At that moment, the Dharma hall will be empty of all those things. So it was already empty. They leave, it's still empty. Hey Ryan, happy to see you here. Ananda, or Ananda. Full always means full of something. And empty always means empty of something. The words full and empty have no meaning on their own. Please, Lord, could you explain that more? Said Ananda. Consider this. Empty is always empty of something, such as empty of markets, buffaloes, villages, and bhikkhus. We cannot say that emptiness is something which exists independently. Fullness is the same. Full is always full of something, such as full of markets, buffaloes, villages, or bhikkhus. Fullness is not something which exists independently. At the present moment, we can say that the Dharma hall is empty of markets, buffaloes, and villages, as for all dharmas. If we say that all dharmas are full, what are they full of? If we say that all dharmas are empty, what are they empty of? Bhikkhus, the emptiness of all dharmas refers to the fact that all dharmas are empty of a permanent and unchanging self. So these are the two characteristics of constructed things. There are actually, it could be said to be 4 characteristics. The first 2 are impermanence and not self. And with wrong view, we have dukkha. When we expect things that are not permanent to be permanent and they turn out to be impermanent, we suffer. When we approach the world as if there were independent selves, so with wrong view, we end up suffering because this view is incorrect. But with right view, correcting our mind through deep looking, we find nirvana. So the last characteristic could be like a dual characteristic. It's nirvana and dukkha, or sukha and dukkha. Sukha is like bliss, the opposite of dukkha. Ananda said, all dharmas are without a self. This we understand. But then, Lord, do the dharmas actually exist? The Buddha quietly looked down at the small table before him on which was placed a bowl of water. He pointed to the bowl and asked Ananda, Ananda, would you say this bowl is full or empty? Lord, the bowl is full of water. Ananda, take this bowl outside and empty all the water out of it. Venerable Ananda did as the Buddha instructed. When he returned, he placed the empty bowl back on the table. The Buddha lifted the bowl and turned it upside down and asked, Ananda, is this bowl now full or empty? Lord, it is no longer full, it is empty. Ananda, are you sure the bowl is empty? Yes, Lord, I am sure the bowl is empty. Ananda, this bowl is no longer full of water, but it is full of air. You have forgotten already. Empty means empty of something, and full means full of something. In this case, the bowl is empty of water, but full of air. I understand now. Good, Ananda, this bowl can be either empty or full. Of course, whether there is emptiness or fullness depends on the presence of the bowl. Without a bowl, there would be no emptiness or fullness. It is just like the Dharma hall. In order for it to be full or empty, it must first be there. Ah, the bhikkhus suddenly exclaimed with one voice, so the whole assembly was just like, oh! Venerable Ananda joined his palms. Lord, then the dharmas do exist. The dharmas are real. The Buddha smiled. Ananda, don't be caught by words. If the dharmas are phenomena empty of self, their existence is not the existence of ordinary perception. Their existence has the same meaning as emptiness. I can talk about it later, but for now I'm going to read. I'd be happy to talk more about emptiness. Ananda joined his palms. Please, Lord, can you explain further? Ananda, we have spoken about an empty and a full bowl. We have also spoken about an empty and a full Dharma hall. I have briefly spoken about emptiness. Let me speak more about fullness. Although we have agreed that the bowl on the table is empty of water, if we look deeply, we will see that it is not entirely true. So, the Buddha and Ananda are going back and forth. This reminds me of like a dialogue with Socrates. It takes some thinking to get it. We gotta look at the whole story, contemplate. First we have to see what the story is and wait for it to become clear. Although we have agreed that the bowl on the table is empty of water, if we look deeply, we will see that it is not entirely true. The Buddha lifted the bowl and then looked at Ananda. Ananda, among the interwoven elements that have given rise to the bowl, do you see water? Yeah, it's raining. Yes, Lord. Without water, the potter would not have been able to mix the clay he used to fashion the bowl. Just so, Ananda. Looking deeply, we can see the presence of water in the bowl, even though we earlier stated that it is empty of water. The presence of the bowl depends on the presence of water. Ananda, can you see the fire element in this bowl? Yes, Lord. Fire was necessary to complete the bowl. Looking deeply, I can see the presence of heat and fire in the bowl. What else can you see? I see the air. Without air, the fire could not have burned, and the potter could not have lived. I see the potter and his skillful hands. I see his consciousness. I see the kiln, and the wood stacked in the kiln. I see the trees the wood came from. I see the rain, sun, and earth which enabled the trees to grow. Lord, I can see thousands of interpenetrating elements which gave rise to this bowl. Excellent, Ananda. Contemplating the bowl, it is possible to see the interdependent elements which gave rise to the bowl. Ananda, these elements are present within and without the bowl. Your own awareness is one of the elements. If you took away heat and returned it to the sun, if you returned the clay to the earth and the water to the river, if you returned the potter to his parents and the wood to the forest trees, could the bowl still exist? Lord, the bowl could no longer exist. If you returned the interdependent elements which gave rise to the bowl to their sources, the bowl could no longer be present. Ananda, contemplating the law of dependent co-arising, pratitya samutpada, we see that the bowl cannot exist independently. It can only exist in interdependent relation with all other dharmas. Yeah, the rain is okay. I feel good about it. All dharmas depend on each other for birth, existence, and death. The presence of one dharma implies the presence of all other dharmas. The presence of all dharmas is implied by the presence of just one dharma. Ananda, this is the principle of interpenetration and interbeing. I'm going to stop reading there. I'm going to stop there. That is the image of Indra's net. That image where there's this giant net, and at each of the nodes of this network there's a jewel, and the jewel reflects all the other jewels. So there's one in all in one. The bowl could not exist without the fire and the water and the air and the potter who made it, the kiln. This kind of emptiness is interdependence, it's interbeing. The Buddha is now using fullness to describe emptiness. I like this one quote in The Art of Living, Thich Nhat Han's book. It says, emptiness means to be full of everything, but empty of an independent self. So, all things depend on all other things. All things depend on not-self elements. And this is something people don't have to accept on faith. We can look and know for ourselves that this is true. In Buddhism, there is an element of faith. At some point, we do take it on somebody's word that like, oh, hey, I should go look at this teaching. I should practice this method. And because we trust the person, we have confidence in the person, we give it a try. But it doesn't stop there. It's not faith alone. Faith is just the first movement in the darkness. And then we actually do the thing. We analyze. There's this word in Pali, ehipassiko, which means come see. The Buddha's teaching is inviting us to come see for ourselves. So we can all come see for ourselves that all things stand on all other things. All things that consist of not-self elements. Thich Nhat Han does a great job of conveying this ancient teaching in modern language. One of the reasons why I created this group, I wanted to hear more about it. I wanted to be friends with the people who understand how beautiful this is. So here I am, here you are, and I see you there, and it makes me very happy. Now this has been enough rambling. My legs are crossed. I'm sitting up straight. You don't need to cross your legs, but sitting up straight is helpful. Posture is helpful in breathing. Helps make the breathing easy. That makes me happy to hear. Somebody up higher in the comments implied I'm a scam artist. I don't think I am. I try not to be. But nobody is always praised, nobody is always blamed. I understand. So now I'm gonna breathe. Breathing in, I know I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know I'm breathing out. Thoughts, sights, sounds, other sensations call for attention, and I notice them. I give them a little attention. I say, oh, there you are. I hear you. But now I'm breathing. Hello. And I return to my breath, and I directly experience the breath. I breathe deep into my belly, but I don't work on modifying the breath too much. Just watching the breath, being mindful of the breath, it modifies itself. Thank you. Now the rain is slowing down. Breathing in, I know I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know I'm breathing out. Breathing in, I hear a bird. Breathing out, I smile at the bird. Breathing in, I hear a car. Breathing out, I smile at the person in the car going to work. In. Out. In. Out. Breathing in, I see myself as a flower. Breathing out, I feel fresh. Flower. Fresh. Flower. I feel fresh. Breathing in, I see myself as a mountain. Breathing out, I feel solid and stable. Breathing in, I see myself as a mountain. Breathing out, I feel stable. Mountain. Stable. Mountain. Stable. Mountain. Stable. Breathing in, I see myself as open, indivisible space. Breathing out, I see great potential. Breathing in, I see myself as space. Breathing out, I feel open. Space. Open. Space. Open. Space. Open. Accepting. Space. Accepting. Breathing in, I see myself as a great bright light. Breathing out, I feel bright. Breathing in, I see myself as infinite light. Breathing out, I feel bright. Light. Bright. Light. Bright. Light. Bright. Breathing in, I know I am breathing in. Breathing out, I know I'm breathing out. In. Out. In. Out. The Buddha in me bows to the Buddha in you. A lotus for you, a Buddha to be. Thank you for joining me. I've got some things to do this morning. I gotta run. I'll be back. Feel free to message me or comment or whatever. I'm always happy to talk about Buddhism and meditation. Bye-bye.